The most powerful thing in life is taking our pain and transforming it into purpose. But when we find ourselves in that painful place, a lot of times we're too embarrassed to say that that's where we are. And we think that that will change the way that people think about us. And so that's where we have this opportunity to have a belief that we can take the things that we think disqualify us from the world and actually make those be the things that qualify us to help more people than we could ever imagine.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Say Yes Anyway podcast. These are conversations from the heart where we say yes to something that has maybe made no sense to ourselves or anybody else in the world, but we know that we have to say yes to them because it's what's guiding us. And so I hope that this episode doesn't just inspire you into something, but you can actually take action in your own life and whatever that yes is for you. And so today I'm so excited because we have Joseph Sheehey, and he is actually he's a father, he's a husband, he's a nature and wellness enthusiast, and he was the aerospace engineer industry, and he left it to also become the CEO of Cured Nutrition. And it's actually really cool because I found out about him because I tried some of the products myself and I loved them. And so I've been super curious, honestly, more so behind the story of how this all started. I have some near and dear things to my heart. And I know that he's actually all about helping people through what he does today. And this is what I love about him and Cured Nutrition. And also I saw on his profile on your LinkedIn, I saw you said, I left corporate aerospace to build my own space. And my strong belief in our connection to nature drives my everyday purpose. So I actually really love that. So welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, I forgot that I put that on LinkedIn a while ago, but it still stands true.
Yeah, what does that actually mean to you? I'm curious because it stood out to me.
Yeah, I mean, growing up as just my whole life, I've always been a builder. I've always been someone who felt like I had this deep purpose in me and a calling in my life. And growing up, my father, he was an airline pilot. And I, like any son looks to their father, they think they hung the moon. And for most of my life, I wanted to be an airline pilot like my dad. And in third grade, my mom, she's a nurse, she came to the school and she was doing our eyesight tests. And she was like the stand-in nurse, and she was testing my eyes, and it was my turn, and I couldn't read the sign. And she said, Joseph, like, quit joking. I know you're just joking. And I was like, Mom, like, I can't see the sign. And so I've had bad eyesight my whole life. And to be a fighter pilot, to be an astronaut, to do a lot of those types of things, you have to have really good vision. I think you can have it like be corrected now and still become a pilot. But I felt like I had a dream squashed very, very young. And then so most of my life, I was just saying, well, if I can't fly these, if I can't be the person that goes to space, what if I could build things that go to space? What if I could understand how airplanes fly? What if I could be behind the scenes? And I was I did all the Legos, and I was really good at math and science. And that's what took me in the aerospace direction. However, when I got into aerospace, and there's a bit of a backstory behind me getting into aerospace, I just recognized that there was a dead end for me. What felt like a dead end, what felt like I wasn't fulfilling purpose. And so for me, that idea of leaving corporate aerospace to build my own space is a call to pursue something that is a grander purpose in my life and can have a direct impact on people. And I've always believed so deeply in nature and have had this inherent sense of just the connection. And that's why Cured has become a thing. There's a couple other backstories, but that's like the corporate world that many people work so hard to get to.
Totally.
Can feel like a trap to some of us. And it can feel like we did all the things that we thought we were supposed to. We do the shoulds and the supposed tos of the world, our parents, society, all of those things. And then we feel a sense of emptiness. And then we wonder, what is this all really about? And so for me to leave what was really hard for me to accomplish, engineering school was not easy. Um, there's a sense of freedom in that and a sense of calling. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's why that lives on my LinkedIn. And I'm probably just going to keep it there.
No, I loved it. I seriously was like, oh wow, that's like the thing that stood out to me the most. So we're gonna lead with that.
Yeah, I
But
love
no,
that.
it's so true what you said about honestly, I think it's a lot of times in mostly America. I live in Spain right now, but mostly America where it's like you try to get to this place. And I was also in this spot of I was trying to be a celebrity hairdresser and fitness trainer and all these things. And then I got to a place of like, what is going on? And mine was like a health situation of, oh shoot, I got to my end in the health place and I have to do something about it. And I think we all come to this thing of like trying to strive towards something, whether it be what our parents told us, whether it be what society says, whether it be, oh, that's what I just think that we're supposed to do or whatever, or what's going to make me happy. And so you talk about this like deeper calling or deeper purpose.
Mhm.
And I'll be honest, I actually, with your story too, because I listened to a couple different things and I have some family members and some other people that are really close to me that struggle with addiction and some really hard things that like you can't get out of a certain situation till a certain light bulb comes on and there has to be something bigger than ourselves to finally get us out of that. And I know it's really hard, but
Yeah.
with even cured nutrition in your story, I find it very inspiring because I'm like, man, if like the people I loved could get a hold of whatever their thing is or whatever can like get them through and like find hope or purpose or that calling elsewhere. So yeah, just to share from the get-go, like that's actually what drew me in to want to know more. So what like with your story, you talk about with cured nutrition and then just I know it's been a long journey, but um like I know you had your time aerospace and then going through your own personal journey through something like that and then what is today if you don't mind sharing some of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I went to school in Boulder, Colorado for engineering. And um, I think a lot of us, as we similar to how we started this conversation, a lot of us go to college and we find ourselves in this place where we're surrounded by a bunch of other people that are in the exact same situation, not knowing a lot about their true self, what it is they really want, who they really want to be for themselves rather than for the world or somebody on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
And very quickly when I got to school, I just I didn't have a filter for making decisions on who I wanted to surround myself with or not. And I found myself doing a lot of partying very quickly in school. And for me, I have always been somebody that struggled with anxiety, specifically like social anxiety. Like what do other people think about me in all situations? What is this person thinking about me? What's the right thing to say? How should I say it?
Mm-hmm.
And how I felt I gained connection and community at first in college was through having a bringing down my walls, which would typically be brought down by substances. I would feel like I could connect with people more. And it wasn't necessarily on a true to me level, but I found myself surrounding myself with people that who are not bad people. However, by surrounding myself with them, I made very destructive decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And as I did a lot of work after school, I started to understand some of the hatred that I had towards myself. But while I was in school and I was making those poor decisions, I found myself on a very slippery slope. And it ended up taking me 5 years to graduate from school. But in my fourth year, in April 2012, I had just come back from spring break. I went to Miami. I was there for a week, and I did everything that you would imagine on spring break. And that really affected my mental health. And I got back from spring break and I was in this relationship and I was very insecure, and we would go out and we would party, and I would make very embarrassing decisions under the influence of alcohol and drugs. And one night, it was a Tuesday in 2012, April 2012, I found myself coming out of a blackout. I had blacked out that night. We had driven down to Denver for a concert, and I ended up getting kicked out of the concert. And before this time where I came out of the blackout, I had been kicked out of the concert. I was coming in and out of the blackout. But that night, when I got kicked out of the concert for being drunk and getting in a fight with somebody, I sat on the party bus that was supposed to bring us back to school. And I remember just sitting in so much shame, just being so embarrassed. And then we got back to Boulder. A couple other events happened at the party, and I was just like, I'm out of here. And as I walked home, it was when I started to come out of the blackout. But when I really started to come to awareness, I had gotten to a point where I climbed over the edge of a guardrail. I was on a bridge. I climbed over the guardrail, and I was looking down with my feet hanging off the edge of the bridge, and I was ready to jump off. I was ready to end my life. And it was now 2:30 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. And I recognized in that moment how far gone I was, how much hatred I had towards myself. And I was making the decision to ultimately end it. And what this person was doing on a Tuesday morning at 2:30 a.m., I do not know, but there was somebody underneath the bridge down on the rocks, and he just said, "Stop. Don't do it." And I just remember bursting into tears and grabbing the guardrail behind me, and he said, "Can I come up there?" And I was just like, "Yeah." And he climbed up the rocks, climbed around the bridge, and he pulled me over the guardrail. And my girlfriend at the time had been following me because I was so belligerent that night. She had been following me, but at a distance as I was walking home. She got there, he was there, and she ended up walking me home. And when I walked home, when she got me home, I took a handful of Xanax. And the next morning, I found myself under 24-hour surveillance in a hospital with the nurses and doctors and my parents standing over me, asking me, "Joe, we're gonna run some tests. Is there anything that you want to tell us that we might find in your system?" And the truth was, a better question would have been like, what were you not going to find in my system? And as I listed off all the drugs I had been taking over the last several weeks, I just saw the life get sucked out of my parents, because not only did they see that they almost lost their son had completely lost himself. And the weeks and the months after that night were very dark, and they got even darker because I was put very quickly on more medication than I had already been on. I was on anti-anxiety medication, which if you drink on anti-anxiety medication, you're most likely going to black out. And then I was put on antidepressants. And I continued to make very, very poor decisions. And I just got to this point where my parents knew that it was a life or death situation that was just continuing to slide. And I had suicidal thoughts consistently after that night. And my parents ended up pulling me out of Boulder, Colorado, said, we cannot watch this happen any further. And they ended up pulling me out of the city. I left all my friends. And that next year, I basically was at home living at my parents' house, driving up to Boulder to finish my degree, and then driving home every day. And while I struggled so much in that time, I got to this point where I just became very resistant to, let's try this medication, let's try that medication. And that journey is what ultimately ended up leading me to starting Cured. My mom, as she saw my resistance, gave me a book by Dr. Andrew Weil, and there's it's spontaneous healing. And in that book, he talks a lot about traditional Chinese medicine and food and sunlight and the natural way to help support mental health struggles. And ever since then, through the time I ended up leaving corporate America, I just had this desire to be part of changing this industry, part of helping people in an alternative way,
Mm-hmm.
because I knew, like myself, so many people were looking for alternative solutions to support their life, their health, their wellness. I'm not necessarily even speaking directly to mental health. I'm speaking to everything else that we can do that, with the fallout, supports our mental health.
Yeah.
And that dark, dark place led me ultimately to 7 years later. I ended up getting my corporate engineering job and spent 7 years in corporate engineering. But 7 years later, it was like we started this podcast. I just recognized I would go sit in my cubicle and I would look around. I would look at my colleagues and I would see their demeanor. And I started listening to podcasts at the time, and I heard the Thoreau quote for the first time where he says, "Most men live lives of quiet desperation." And that was so true for me. I was desperate for something else. I was desperate to feel like I was putting all of my hard, hard work to get to where I was into something that felt purposeful to me. And I got to this point where I had the entrepreneurial itch. I had started a podcast because what ended up getting me back to a very stable mental health place was alternative or uh, herbal supplements, and also bodybuilding. The bodybuilding industry really saved my life because I could physically move through all the pain and the hatred that I had towards myself. And so my podcast, I started as a competing podcast for people in the physique world. And I ended up rebranding it to a podcast called Higher Health.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started that podcast, I was still working in corporate America. I had many people see me starting to share my story and my struggles with mental health because for years I told nobody. I
Mm-hmm.
had nobody in my college, all the friend groups that I had, they didn't know what happened that night. I didn't tell any of them and I just left.
Yeah.
So I was almost like I did leave or pass away and they didn't have an answer. But as I started to speak out about what I experienced, I had many people raise their hand saying, "I've struggled with the same. Thank you for sharing your story. I've struggled with the same. Thank you for sharing my story." And also expressing interest in alternative methods.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, why aren't people talking about this on the podcast? They would talk about it off the podcast, but they wouldn't talk about it on the podcast. And I recognized it was because there was this stigma. And if we speak specifically about CBD and cannabinoids, there's a stigma that's been created by propaganda. And that propaganda started in the early 1900s when William Randolph Hearst was heavily invested in the paper industry because he was part of the printing press and putting the news out into the world. There was this battle between hemp and paper because you can do a lot of things with hemp. And it was actually threatening to the industry he was in, which was paper mills. And so propaganda started about hemp and marijuana. And that's when, you know, reefer madness came out. And where most people, their conditioning to think about marijuana, that's where it really started. And so I recognized that while many people were interested, we didn't know where to start the conversation because there are alternative methods for many things, but many of us have either found ourselves in the institutionalized medicine route and we didn't know what questions to ask, or we've just literally been searching for so long without a solution.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, the other piece of all of this that you touched on was I was an alcoholic. I really was. I was addicted to escaping my pain and I did that through alcohol. I lost my uncle, I lost my grandpa, my cousin directly died from alcohol in a car crash, and then I almost lost my life from alcohol. And while my mom, coming from that side of the family, escaped alcoholism, one thing that I saw growing up was the similar place that I found myself in, and it was orange bottles with white caps, orange bottles with white caps. And to me, I just knew that there needed to be another way. And I'll also put a caveat to all of this. There's a time and place for everything. And I truly believe everybody can be supported by traditional medicine. And we wouldn't be where we are without traditional medicine. But a new narrative needed to be created. And that's where Cured was really born. It was born through this understanding that many people are raising their hand for an alternative solution. They're scared to say that I'm trying an alternative route because of a stigma. And so our mission as a company is to change the way a million people think about cannabis and do it in a way where it's health and wellness and done in a way where our I say we try, but we really do. We put a lot of effort into painting the proper picture of who a cannabis user could be, and they could still be respectable. They could still be trustworthy. They could still be honorable. They're not the Cheech and Chong stoner that we've been all conditioned to believe that they are. And so that's been the whole mission. And when I finally left corporate America, I had an idea. It took me a long time to leave corporate America because I felt the itch for a while, but I had an idea and a passion and a vision. And when I ended up leaving my career, I had 2 months worth of savings in my savings account and a whole lot of pressure to figure something out very quickly because as I pursued this path, going back to a federally funded company or trying to go back to the place I was like, this is not going to happen. And it's a long-winded way to say that I struggled with a lot. I saw other people struggling, and I knew that there had to be something to be done to help change the narrative so that more people could say yes to the holistic alternative route and do it in a way where the picture and the belief was different than the propaganda that a lot of us have experienced.
So good. Oh my gosh, there's a million things in there too, by the way, that I'm like, well, one, I mean, I am curious to bring it back first. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, your story is crazy. It's like, even to think, I mean, you're just a miracle to be alive, honestly. Like, I just think that that guy under the bridge was an actual angel, like an earth angel, just there for you. Like, I actually think that. I don't know what you think, but I think that. And from there, though, it's just so interesting because it's like that thought of we have a choice with our life. Like, we're put in a position, doesn't matter what our decisions are, but we're put in this place. This guy comes, and then there you are, and you have a choice to make. And so you made this choice. And then even the fact that, then you go to the hospital, you take these Xanax, you go to the hospital, you see your parents, all this stuff. Like, some people kind of blow that off and is like, whatever, I just want to keep doing what I'm doing. And then there is also that choice too, to then be like, oh my gosh, what if there's something more? So I am curious because I know, again, like, you can't force anybody into decisions. You can't force anybody to, like, the reality is at least from what I know, is nobody really wants to end their life. They just want to end the pain of what they're experiencing. And
Yeah.
so, like, what do you think is something for people, like, if they're actually in that space, that is like they're in their rock bottom? Maybe it's through addiction, maybe it's something else, but they're in that rock bottom and like they have a choice to make and we can't force anything. Like, what is that thing that, it's different for everybody, obviously, but from your own story that like unlocked you, that was like, oh, well, I have a choice to make. I can do this or I can do this.
Yeah. I 100% agree with you that the man that was underneath the bridge was the earth angel. And there's so much purpose. I think the most powerful thing in life is taking our pain and transforming it into purpose.
Mm-hmm.
But when we find ourselves in that painful place, a lot of times we're too embarrassed to say that that's where we are. And we think that that will change the way that people think about us. And so that's where we have this opportunity to have a belief that we can take the things that we think disqualify us from the world and actually make those be the things that qualify us to help more people than we could ever imagine. And the thing that's so beautiful about that night, and his name's Ben, who pulled me over the guardrail of the bridge that night, ended up taking my phone, putting his number in my phone, texting him. And then the next day, I don't remember any of that. The next day, he texted me. He said, "Hey, Joe, how's the world today?"
Mm-hmm.
And I still have his phone number in my phone. It's saved as Ben the Angel. And I think the most important piece of all of this is that the story of why he was underneath the bridge actually makes it so clear why we have to pursue purpose. We have to pursue desire. We have to pursue the things that we know that we really want, because this is what's so crazy. So there's this book somewhere behind me on this bookshelf that my wife color coordinates. It's
I love
beautiful.
it.
Called The Gap and the Gain, and it's written by Dr. Benjamin Hardy. And I've read the book multiple times. Anybody that's an entrepreneur, anybody that believes that they're not measuring up to who they believe they can be, is living in the gap. And it's a very, very beautiful book. I've read it multiple times.
The Gap and the
But
Gain.
in the Gap and the Gain, it's such a good book. But in this book, it's interesting because just like we started this podcast, much of my life today is built off of this story. Like, it's my struggle, and sharing my struggle has built much of what I have in my life. Mm. And that book, I was reading that book, it was about a year ago now. And before that, a couple weeks before that, a couple months before that, my wife and I had been talking, because I've told this story thousands of times and I appreciate telling it. So don't think like I don't want to tell it. I definitely want to tell it. But my wife asked me at one point, she said, do you think you're ever going to not tell that story? Because it's, the story that you always come back to. And, I wrestled with it. I was like, maybe I'll stop telling it at some point. But I was reading the book and I got to this page. And when I read books, if I have a page that I want to come back to, I fold the bottom corner. And I got to this page and the bottom corner was folded. I was like, I don't remember why I folded this last time I read it. And I got to this section on the page, and it was talking about the movie It's a Wonderful Life. I'm not sure if you've seen that movie.
Yeah.
But in the movie, there's a story about a man named George. And an angel appears to him when he's about to jump off of a bridge and end his life. And the angel, Clarence, takes George through what the world would have been like had he not been born. And when I got to that point on the page, I just started bawling. Oh. Because I go, that night, had he seen It's a Wonderful Life? Mm. Did he recognize that this was his time to be Clarence to George, Clarence to me, to be my angel? Yeah. And he texted me the next day and said, hey, Joe, how's the world today? And I started just like all these things coming to me like, oh my God, is this like, but the thing that's even more important about all of this is like, what was Ben doing underneath the bridge that night? Really? Ben was underneath the bridge at 2:30 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, writing poetry. He was getting inspiration from the river passing by him. And you want to know why it's so important to pursue something that you want with your life. So good. Something as simple as writing poetry. Because you do not know the ripple effect that you can have on the world by just saying yes to yourself, by saying, yes, I want to go write poetry. Mm-hmm. I'm inspired to write poetry. Mm-hmm. Ben didn't know the hundreds of thousands of people that I was going to go help through Cured, through speaking, through everything that I do. And that's why it's urgent to know that in your pain is purpose. Yep. Some poets, some artists, most artists, they move their creative nature through pain. It comes out through pain. Their pain comes out through their creative pursuits. Mm-hmm. And had Ben not been there, we wouldn't be on this podcast. Mm-hmm. The hundreds of thousands of Cured customers would have never experienced the business that we've built. And I wouldn't have the life that I now have. Mm-hmm. But it was something so simple. He was saying yes to something that he wanted to do with his life. Yeah. And what's so crazy about this is sometimes we make so complicated purpose in life when it can be as simple as writing poetry underneath a bridge on a Tuesday morning. Yeah. And he really is an earth angel, and he's still in my phone as Ben the Angel.
Something I'm really excited to share with you guys is something that's been really transforming my health and well-being. And I've been healing because of Cured Nutrition has been one supplement that has been helping me a lot. Something that I really love about them is that they are, instead of about going and just popping pills to, create a band-aid over what's going on, they're using natural ingredients to really actually heal your body. And that is what is so, so, so incredibly important to me. So the first one that I really love, if you go to curednutrition.com, is the nightcaps. This one has a full spectrum CBD and CBN that supports the body's natural sleep rhythms throughout the night for deep, deep restorative sleep. And it also has an MCT carrier oil to make sure that you have optimal absorption. Basically, think about CBD helping with all of the aches and the pains, and CBN kind of as if it has that massive blanket on your body that takes you into that deep, deep sleep. Then the second thing that I really love is the Serenity gummies. This, to me, one, it just tastes really good. And second, this has been helping so much with my stress response as well as being calm throughout the day. It has the L-theanine. I believe that's how you pronounce it. It relaxes the brain without inducing any kind of drowsiness, and it really helps with that attention and mental alertness that I really, really love. It also has a tiny microdose of THC in there, but it does not have the ability to give you a high. And so just taking a couple capsules, a couple gummies is not going to give you a high. That's not the purpose of it. And it also has reishi, which encourages your healthy cortisol levels. And all of us these days have so much stress going on in our lives, and we need that support. Same as ashwagandha, helps with the levels of stress and promotes relaxation. So I recommend honestly buying them together, the nightcap with the Serenity gummies, taking the Serenity gummies maybe once or twice a day, and then the nightcaps one time before you go to bed. And I have had deep, deep sleep. I've also just had this calmness, and I've actually taken the gummies right before bed, and that's also really helped me have a deeper sleep as well. So you can go to their website, curednutrition.com. I have a code. It is JESSDAHL, JESSDAHL, and you will receive a discount. And anyway, I'm excited because I love sharing the things that have transformed my life or helped me in my own health and well-being or recovery. And this has helped me a ton. So go to their website, go and get whichever one you like. Let me know also how you liked it. I can't wait. Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed. It's so true. I think that, it's like if you look back if you really reflect on life and you're like, oh my gosh, I was in this place at this time and this person was right there. And if I hadn't done this, or this person didn't say yes to that, or if I hadn't said no to this, I wouldn't be here. And it's so intentional that I think that everybody needs to, whoever's listening, look back at your life and just see how intentional life actually is. But we have to actually notice it too. Because if you didn't notice, if you just kind of swept away and was just like, yeah, this guy under the bridge, that's all, da 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 da, it wouldn't have that big of an impact on you. And it wouldn't be so big a part of the story. So I think that's part of it too, where it's like, oh, notice the miracle. The miracle is now, the miracle is all the time. The purpose is now, you're living it as long as you're following true to what you're listening to your heart, and you're just like, this makes absolutely no sense, but I'm going to go ahead and do this thing, or I'm going to go ahead and have this conversation, or I'm going to step over this way or whatever. And you just don't know. We may never actually know the ripple effect that we have. We may never see the fruit of it, but it's happening back there. I believe that wholeheartedly, that probably this guy has a bunch of people he's impacted beyond he could ever imagine, just because of that one moment. And then obviously you also, and what else it's done. But yeah, that's so
He was
good.
answering the call. I mean, that's my wife and I, we mentor a lot of entrepreneurs because through the journey I've made a lot of mistakes and I've learned a lot, and I like to help other people through my mistakes. But we talk about that event so much because every single one of us feel called. You feel called because you are called, but you have to answer the call. And when you pick up the phone and you answer the call, it may feel like something that's really scary. It may feel like pain. It may feel like something that you're very embarrassed about. But in the depths of that pain, in the depths of the things that we truly believe are the things that disqualify us from the things that we want in life, is the answer. Like, you have to go there. And that's the reason why Joseph Campbell talks about the hero's
I
journey.
was just going to ask you if you've seen the
It's,
documentary.
yeah, but it's literally that. Like,
Yeah.
most of the time, we don't answer the call.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because it's scary. It's because it's bigger than we could ever imagine, but it's also more simple than we could ever imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And that also comes into business. Like, businesses thrive, people's lives thrive because they keep things simple and focused.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so hard to do in our world today, to stay simple, to stay focused, and to say, what's so beautiful about your podcast is find the one thing to say yes to and say no to everything else, because that no is the thing that keeps us narrow and focused and simple and keeps the movement and momentum in our life. And it requires listening. It requires listening to those pings, listening to those calls. Dr. Jordan Peterson says there's no difference between the voice of God and our intuition. And I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
so good.
like that's what it is, right? You're like, oh, like higher power, God, the
Mm-hmm.
creator, whatever you believe in, source.
Mm-hmm.
It's also that thing that you feel inside your gut that's telling you
Mm-hmm.
yes or no. And so many of us just don't listen to it. We don't listen to ourselves. And then we find ourselves months, years, decades, whatever down the road, recognizing that we didn't say yes at all the right places, or we didn't say no to the right things. And we've just that little degree of separation, just the smallest thing can make us end up in such a different place in life. And when you do trace those things back, when you do trace back the correct yeses, you see how beautiful life is when you start to commit to just listening to your
Mm-hmm.
intuition.
That's so
And when you're in the depths of pain and the depths of struggle, it feels like, I always have this analogy of, when you're in that dark place, it's like you're in this hole. It's like you're in the depths of a hole
mm-hmm.
and you look up and you can see the light at the top of the hole,
Mm-hmm.
but you can't see how to get out. You can't see the ladder in the corner. You can't see the rope that you could climb up, but the ladder or the rope is your purpose. It's your vision. It's what it is that you want to create with your life. And if you create a compelling vision for your life, doesn't mean you won't experience those deep lulls or those dark places, those hard places. But if you create a vision that's grand for yourself, if you create something that's going to inspire action, when you find yourself in those dark places, you can always look in the corner and you can find the rope. You can find the ladder out of that dark place. And so for me, that's what's so important about anybody creating the life that they want, but also a business that they want, because
Mm-hmm.
your vision, your mission, that is your guiding star. You always come back to it. And it's very simple for us. We're here to help people and we're here to do it in an alternative way. And we have to do it by changing a narrative.
Yeah.
And if those things, if we're making a big decision in our life, in our business, and they don't fit through that filter, they have to go.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
if they don't, we're not listening to God. We're not listening to our intuition. And
Totally.
so that's me. That's entrepreneurial life. And think that that's the mission, right? Like
Yeah.
there's this 80-year Harvard study, 80 years of asking those that are on their deathbed, what are the things that created happiness and fulfillment in their life? And it comes to two things. It comes to purpose and it comes to connection.
Mm-hmm.
And even thinking about like our connection to nature and the purpose to help people. That's what's driving me. But those are the things that we all need to find. We need to have connection and we need to have purpose. And it looks different for everybody. But Ben said yes to a purpose and he changed a bunch of people's lives. And that's what I do every single day.
I love that. So what do you think? Because you did mention about the like you and your wife love to mentor in business. And I agree with you, with you have to listen to your intuition and that's connected to God. And like there's you can set a plan, but then you have to listen to those things. And sometimes the plan, we have to maneuver, we have to, move things around based off of that intuition that goes there. So I'm curious, what have been with your nutrition, whatever you want to share, like what have been some of those hardships that you're like, oh, great, this is where we're headed. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, crap, that for sure didn't work out. Or, oh, shoot, we had no idea that that was coming. Cause I know 100% with being an entrepreneur and also seeing so many others, same kind of thing where it's like you could never maybe in a million years, like foresee some things that happen. So I'm just curious, like what you have seen, and then also to help navigate yourself to the best yes. And so
Mhm.
that way you could say no to the right things. You could say yes to the right things that are on the path now.
Yeah. How long have you known about how long have you been a part of the company and known about the company? Did you know it back
So
in
since
2017 when it started?
no, I've honestly known since last December,
Okay.
basically. Um, yeah, so since last December, I'll say that.
Okay. So we started it in 2017 and we grew very quickly. In the
Mm-hmm,
first couple of years, we were a multi-million dollar business very quickly. And in 2019, going into 2020, things were going really bad. Like we had this massive rise, but then 2019, like month after month, our revenues were dropping and like drastically.
mm-hmm,
And I didn't I didn't know what was going on. I couldn't figure out what was going on. And one of the biggest lessons I learned through all of this is that just because you can do a lot of things doesn't mean you should. And what happened to us when we started growing so quickly, our focus just got spread so thin. We, as a company that was creating essentially user products, also started getting into manufacturing. We were manufacturing for other companies as well. We had a farm up in Boulder, Colorado. We were basically becoming vertically integrated. So we would farm, we would manufacture, we would do the processing, but then we would also do it for other companies. And what happened was while we did have the quick rise, our focus got spread so thin and our resources. So
mm-hmm,
when your focus goes horizontal, many of us don't recognize why we're not making progress. But it's because our focus drives our resources. So when we were doing all of these things that just because we could do them, we did them,
mm-hmm,
they were our money was just disappearing and we weren't focusing on the things that were what made cured and it was the actual brand
mm-hmm,
and the products that we were delivering. And so if you were to look at the company in 2019 going into 2020 like from the outside looking in and you were to try to say like what direction is this company going in, you would have seen something that looked like arrows going in five different directions.
yeah,
And when our life is like that, so are our resources, our capital, our
mm-hmm,
ability to develop relationships, our ability to do so many things. Like you can only go so deep in 10 different directions.
yeah,
And so for us, we had to recognize, like you're asking, what the true yes really was.
mm,
And we were here to help people.
yeah,
And just because we could do those other things didn't mean we should, because those weren't aligned with the mission. They weren't aligned with the vision. And so we did that. And just before 2020 and just before COVID hit, I ended up completely restructuring my company. I got rid of everything but just the products and just the brand because we were good at the brand and we were good at the marketing. We were good at the product development. And that's the practice that we go through all the time because in the beginning of 2020, we actually established in words our mission, in words our vision, and in words our core values. The values, the operating principles that were the decision making filters for what we said yes to. And our
mm,
core values and our mission, like I was saying, those are the things that guide our life. And so we use that all the time. We restructured our company in 2020 in the beginning. But even since then, we've had times where we've released a bunch of products and not all of the products are the products that we should have been focusing on. Like we had a beverage at one point, but that's also like a completely different business model because you're doing distribution and you're going into retail. And so what's really important is to establish mission, vision, and purpose in your core values. And that is the ultimate yes. And what we've gotten to is we've recognized that most people that come to Cured are struggling with either stress or they're struggling with sleep. And if we can just focus on those things, we do have other products that are versatile for other areas of the life of a human's life. But if we can focus on those two problems that so many people struggle with, then we can actually create momentum. And we've just doubled down on stress support and sleep support. And we've noticed that as we've done that, we design products to fit that. And then we're always saying yes to the right thing. And just because we can do other things, just because people can ask us to create other products, doesn't mean we should. It doesn't mean that we won't step out of that a little bit, but those are our guiding principles. And if we think about it, a lot of people are stressed and a lot of people can't sleep. And
100%.
so for us, we said, how do we design products to help support those main two areas of people's life? And how do we do it in alignment with our mission, which is an alternative way through cannabinoids and mushrooms and adaptogens? And that's what keeps us coming back to center all the time. Does it fit those filters?
Yeah. Yeah. So good. So I do want to talk about the kind of the stigma with, because I'm also very alternative. Like my very long story short, my dad, for example, was supposed to be paralyzed for the rest of his life, even before I was born. Went out
Wow.
to Japan, like nobody believed he would ever walk again, nothing. Went out to Japan, saw this like healer doctor dude, had like total vision and faith, like all this stuff, like he saw. But then he also like listened to this person, did all these things that nobody in the US would ever recommend. And I mean, he's this walking miracle. We climb, backpack, all the things. And it's
That's
like,
so
oh
cool.
my gosh, okay. Like there's so many other ways. And so I've always been that way. I think it makes me really sad where the world is right now with big pharma and just trying to, put a band-aid over everything, not actually heal from
Mm-hmm.
the within, go deep within whatever we're trying to actually heal. It's just like, oh, whatever, like symptom, goodbye. So I am curious with this because again, like you talk about the stigma with cannabis and how people think it's like a drug, and what people think like drugs are to whatever, get high or party or whatever people think that it is, but there is a massive healing element. And I truly believe that. So I do want to hear from you, like whatever you want to share, because I know there's so many elements to it and to dig into that. But how is this like an actual healing element? Because I do believe that on the forefront of the future is going to be all these alternative ways. And so
Mm-hmm.
for people to kind of switch their mindset into like, oh, I don't have to do this. Like I can be curious about these things and try some things, and not have to maybe like abuse them like some people do, but how to go about them in a wise way and use it for healing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. The If anybody hasn't seen it, I highly recommend a podcast, Tucker Carlson podcast with Callie and Casey Means. They talk about how big pharma is essentially keeping us sick and how it's just this wheel that keeps us sick. And the thing with what we're doing is first, we're recognizing that if you look at the history of cannabis, it's thousands and thousands of years. Like it showed up in pharmacology over 5,000 years ago. And there are also belief that some stories of the Bible are saying that psychedelics specifically, but also cannabis were potentially used. Like there are remnants of potentially showing up in a
Almost
lot
like
of
that was
religious
like the
texts.
manna or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so if there's a much longer history to cannabis than what we experience in our modern world, it should just raise a question. It should just be like, okay, I'm curious. And I'm curious about why I believe what I believe and where did I start to believe it. And the thing with what we do at Cured is we design our products to help people get relief, but not escape. And that's where like escaping is like the
Mhm.
drug, right?
Mhm.
And I also believe that the cannabis plant can be abused and it can be a drug. And if you're using it to get high and you're using it to escape, that's just propagating the narrative around it. And
Right.
that's an
Totally.
issue.
Just like anything,
So
same thing as like
yeah.
mushrooms if you're going to go have a trip, but if you're going to
Yep.
use. So anyway, continue.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, it's true.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of people microdosing
Hmm.
and even using like therapeutic doses of psychedelics. It has to be done very intentional.
Yeah.
And the thing with cannabis and the thing with how Curatus positions itself is we derive all of our extracts from the hemp plant. So, like, if you were thinking about cannabis, think of cannabis as like the mother, like the genus or the species. And then below it, think hemp and think marijuana. So hemp is defined as cannabis with less than 0.3% THC, and marijuana is cannabis with greater than 0.3% THC. We
Mhm.
extract all of our extracts from the hemp plant. That's what allows us to ship the product nationwide. And it's also what is making it so there are very low doses of THC showing up in our product, below the 0.3%, but it's still there. And the cannabis plant has over 100 known cannabinoids in it, and all of them are being studied or being believed to have therapeutic benefit. And so, what we do at our company is we take the extracts and we try to keep them in their most whole plant form. And what I mean by that is we just make them the least refined possible. Now, the further you refine them, the more you get to like an isolate, which shows up in a lot of supplements, but there's nothing wrong with that. But our belief is that the closer we can keep it to like a whole plant extract,
Mhm.
the more powerful it will be. And so when we have they're called full spectrum extracts. And a full spectrum extract, when it's extracted from the hemp plant, is going to be high in CBD, which is in most of our products, cannabidiol, which is CBD, and then all the other cannabinoids that people are now hearing about are CBN, THC, CBC, CBG. All of those are showing up in a full spectrum extract just at different concentrations. And they all actually work together. So every human has an endocannabinoid system, and that system can be regulated by taking exogenous cannabinoids. The CB1 and CB2 receptors in your body, which are all over your body, can be essentially modulated by cannabinoids. And your endocannabinoid system can support your sleep wake cycle, it can support your mood, it can support your appetite. Think of it almost as something that helps your body achieve homeostasis or helps your body achieve a positive stress response. Well, for us, we recognize that THC actually has the same has very therapeutic benefits to it. But we don't want to get people high because many people when they're looking for an alternative and they go to the marijuana side that I was talking about, it's much higher doses of THC and people will try it and they'll get anxious. And that's not what they were looking for. They were looking for relief, they were looking for
Right.
calming, they were looking for sleep. And so in our products, we have very, very, very low dose THC, which gives you relief. But with CBD and L-theanine and other adaptogens that we put in our products, it helps take away those anxiety like effects and it helps you just get the calm relief. And it's not to tune out, but it's to tune in, it's to get the relief. And so that's how we design our products to be having very low dose concentrations of THC to then introduce people to THC to then go, oh, this isn't what I thought it was, or I've
Hmm.
used high dose THC before and I didn't like it. And so that's kind of our mission is to just say, here's the entry to a new belief about the plant
Hmm.
and a way to use it in very low concentrations that are therapeutic and not intended to get somebody high. That's not our mission.
Yeah, I love that. And honestly, my my only maybe handful of times I've had with cannabis or marijuana or anything were kind of accidental, but they were like not good experiences where it was like,
Yeah.
never, like never. And I was like, just doesn't work for my body, like super paranoid, all the things. And after taking these, I mean, it's different because I wasn't even looking for a high. Like I said, it was actually pretty much accidental, probably every time, but it didn't feel good. And then now experiencing it, I'm like, oh, wow, okay. And that's what got me curious too of like, okay, there is the healing benefits here. Like, let's talk more because I think that people are just not aware of if they try it once or try it in a certain modality or a certain kind of way. they're going to get a different response. So what do
Mhm.
you think too about, well, one, what is, I am curious about what the difference between like CBN and CBD, like what's that? I don't know.
Yeah. So the best way to just to describe it is when you think about CBD specifically, CBD is non-intoxicating, and then THC is the one that is intoxicating. If you take enough of it, it is intoxicating. So depending on the cannabinoid, the psychoactive effects are different. So you use them in different concentrations. But CBD is more used for its calming effects and anti-inflammatory like effects. Like if you take it over time, it helps the response of your body to recover and also to have a stress response. And so you have to build therapeutic levels in your system, specifically with CBD. And so that's what many people use CBD for. But CBN has more of like a heavy type feeling on your body. CBN is if you had marijuana in a jar and you put it in a dark place for a long time, you would actually see that some of the THC concentration turns into CBN. And so
Mm,
CBN is a cannabinoid that's going to make you much more sleepy, whereas CBD doesn't make you sleepy, it just makes you calm. I
mm,
like to describe CBN as like a weighted blanket. If you lay underneath a weighted blanket, the effect of CBN is like you're underneath that weighted blanket, like you're getting like a nice warm hug. And then THC, of course, is more relief,
mhm,
but only when you're doing it at the really low concentrations. You
mm,
can get the relief at high concentrations, but then you could get the effects that you mentioned that people are not really looking for.
right.
And so CBN, CBD, THC, CBG, there's a whole array of cannabinoids and they all have different therapeutic benefits. And for us, depending on the product, if it's a sleep product, we do higher CBN. If it's just a calming product, we do higher CBD. If
Mm,
it's a general calming and relief product, we do a little bit of THC. So every product is different. And what I didn't mention is my business partner and I, we actually met in engineering school. And so
mm,
we're both like extreme nerds. And so what we've always done is we've always been very excited and interested in the science. And he's more on the product development end, and I'm more on the marketing and sales end. And every time we create a new product or every time we manufacture a new product, he's going through every single extract, the testing results, and making sure that the cannabinoid concentrations are exactly where they need to be to produce the effect that we're looking for. So we put a lot of time and effort into the formulation. We're very intentional with the formulation to produce the specific effects. And so every cannabinoid is a little bit different. And just depending on what concentration you're taking them at, you get a different result.
okay. And is everybody's body different to how they experience it?
Very much so. Very
Yeah.
much so. Yeah, and cannabinoids are also fat soluble. So you could have a high fat meal or you could take cannabinoids with like an MCT oil, which a lot of our products have an MCT carrier oil in them, and your body actually absorbs them better because they're lipophilic. They bind to fat. And that's also like, people ask if I take your product, could I pass a drug test? And I'm like, well, it depends.
Mm,
And so if you're concerned about it, go for our THC free products. We guarantee there's no THC in those products. But also, you could be somebody that's very athletic or very active. You drink a lot of water, you have low body fat percentage. You could process THC much quicker than somebody else. And so, the same is true for how much you need to get the specific effect. It depends because it depends on your body weight, it depends on your metabolism, and
mm,
all of those things.
hmm. Yeah, that's so fascinating. Okay. And then what are a few more? I know you said mostly like stress and sleep, but what are some other benefits? Like if somebody's like, "Oh, I need better like brain function," or
Mhm.
like are there other things that, you know, other than stress and sleep? Obviously that's like your main thing, but just in
Yep.
case to keep like, "Hey, this isn't only for that." Like there's other reasons why. What are
Yeah,
those
I mean,
things?
so you have the CB1 and CB2 receptors all over your body, in your brain, all over your body. And so it's interesting because at low concentrations, some people actually see that CBD has like a stimulating effect. So it
Hmm.
almost has like a almost like a nootropic effect. But what we've done as a company, so I mentioned my business partner who
Mhm.
does a lot of the product formulation. We also have a clinical herbalist that does our true formulations for us. So he works with her
Mhm.
and she brings in other herbs to help support other functions of the body. So we do have a product called Rise, which is a nootropic,
Mhm.
and it's outside of the, well, it's interesting because Rise actually does support your sleep because there's not caffeine in it. And so you're not getting hopped up on stimulants and you can get to the end of the day and you don't have a bunch of caffeine in your system. So it's like almost secondary effects,
Mhm.
but that product specifically, it has lion's mane, cordyceps, gotu kola, rhodiola, ginseng, and then it has low dose CBD in it. So it has like the uplifting, stimulating effects and really
Mhm.
helps with your brain energy more so. But then CBD helps balance out the product.
Mhm.
Sometimes you'll see in a lot of energy drinks, you'll see L-theanine in it.
Mhm.
L-theanine actually helps like counteract like the shaky type effects of too much caffeine, too much stimulants. And
Mhm.
CBD is very similar. CBD helps like balance out a supplement. And so what I mentioned there is we focus on mushrooms as well because in the future we see more people going to mushrooms, and I'm not talking about psychedelic mushrooms here. I'm talking about functional mushrooms,
Yeah,
but we
same.
believe in psychedelic mushrooms as well. And so what we're really trying to do is say, hey, get introduced to functional mushrooms, the reishis, the lion's manes, the cordyceps, the chagas. Chaga and turkey tail are really good for immune support. So we also have like immune support and gut health product. Um, so I'm getting a little bit away from cannabinoids, but our mission is to create this alternative method. And so we're also using mushrooms, we're also using adaptogens to come together to create a specific function. But for us, the way in which we create our products is very important because using a clinical herbalist, she can look at the way herbs interact with each other. In traditional herbalism, they speak about warming and cooling effects, and they speak about like um, wet and dry. So every herb has warming or cooling or wet or dry effects, and they also interact with each other differently. So you have to be very intentional when you design a product to make sure that all of the ingredients are going to work together in the method that you're really looking for versus saying these ingredients are popular. Let's throw
Mhm.
the kitchen sink into
Yep.
a product and just market it really well. It's
Totally.
not, that's actually not going to create the result that you're looking for. So
Mhm.
we do have some products that, step out of just being inside stress and sleep, but then they come back to really supporting the human body and how it's supposed to function. And I really believe that the first thing that you should look at when you're working on your healing or your health journey is your sleep. And
Mhm.
then the way that that ripples out into every other area of your life, while you have solid sleep, maybe you're not anxious the next day. Maybe you're not falling behind. Maybe you're not using a bunch of stimulants.
Mhm.
It's everything's connected. And so that's how we approach our product design because many people will also ask, like, can we take your products together? And I go, yeah, that's how they were designed. They were designed to all be taken together.
That's so good. So that definitely does make me think because I agree with all of this and I've learned a lot too with just how it's all connected. Because I was like, I don't know the science of it. I'm
Yeah.
definitely not that person. So that helps a lot. But then also what have you found in your own life? Because you said if people start with sleep, everything else just kind of trickles out from there. What are some
Mhm.
other things for you that you've found with your own healing? Like, what do you do today that's like
Yeah.
healing or grounding or to be the best version of yourself? Because I know that you're also a husband. I know you're a father. I know that you have this company. And I believe wholeheartedly that we have to be the best leaders of ourselves. Otherwise, like, our leadership trickles down into literally everything else. So, what have
Mhm.
been the best practices for you, and what are you doing right now?
Yeah. Uh, I can't skip over the fact that I've done a lot of therapy. It's been very helpful.
Yes.
I have a somatic therapist now that she's
Love
really
it.
helped me with a lot of my shame.
Mm,
Because shame binds in your body, and if you can
yeah.
get familiar with the shame that that keeps you bound, that keeps you in a place of not speaking up when you need to, people pleasing, thinking, so many things. It ripples into everything. So I've done a lot of that work,
Mhm,
and also just like one thing that we say as a company, we
mhm,
always say Supplements are supplemental to a lifestyle of healthy habits and routines. So,
Yeah.
like, I sell supplements, right? I'm not going to say that I don't sell supplements and that they can help you a lot, but we put a lot of heart into the education around what can you do for zero or very low cost, and then come to us for like that extra boost, that extra 10, 20%. So for me, as I mentioned, I was in the bodybuilding world for a little while and I still lift weights every day. We have a gym in our basement. I every single morning I get in the cold plunge first thing because most days as a CEO of a company, like I this whole week I've had to have a lot of hard conversations, and I used to be somebody who avoided hard conversations because of my shame and because how I would things would come out sideways and not come out the way that I wanted to. But I always start with a cold plunge. It's the last thing that I want to do. It's the hardest thing to start your day with. But I kind of look at that like get in the cold, breathe, and get through it so that all those other hard things that you have to do today, they're not as hard as getting in 35-degree water. So every morning I wake up, I get in the cold plunge, and we have a Belgian Malinois. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those
No,
dogs,
what the
but
heck
they're
is that?
so you've seen like German Shepherds, and then a Belgian Malinois
Oh,
is
a dog.
similar.
Okay.
It's
I
a
was thinking
police
some
dog.
like wellness, like
No, 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 no.
something that you do. I was like, what is that? Like doing twists.
Yeah,
No. Okay, a dog. Okay. Yes.
he's he's a
Okay.
dog, but
Yeah.
he's a many military dogs are Belgian Malinois. They're really good at smell. They you could
Okay.
train them to be attack dogs,
Mhm.
but he has a lot of energy, and so he's my accountability partner. I get in the cold plunge and I take him on a walk every single morning. And
Mm,
while I walk, that's when I get my sunlight in the morning. I focus on my breathing. I pray a lot of times when I'm walking. I just work through the things that I have to do that day.
mm,
So those two things, like moving my body, I really in our household we're people would think we're really weird, but we do a lot of things with like light as well. So we'd have no artificial light as the sun starts to go down. We just go down with the sun. Our phones, they have red lights on them. We have red lights in our bedroom.
Wait, how do you get the
And
red light on your phone?
so I'll have to send it to you off of this, but
Okay.
check
Epic.
this out. So if I click it 3 times,
Uh-huh.
my
What?
phone
I need
turns
that because
red.
I do the
Yeah.
red light at night too. Like right
Yeah.
now, my time is 10 p.m. And
Oh
so I'm
wow.
already like on another level. But right after
Yep.
this, I'm gonna get in my red light. But I don't have that on my phone and I still send my messages. So that's gonna be epic.
I'll have to send you it. It's like you go to your settings and it's through shortcuts
Huh.
and it's just a filter. So I'll have to look it up for you,
Yeah,
but
that's
you
fine.
can select the red color pencil and then
Oh,
you make the shortcut, the three clicks turn your phone red. So you can look at your phone and it's
huh.
not going to be having the blue light and be stimulating. Um, we do mouth tape, we do sleep masks, our rooms are pitch
Yes.
black, but then also we really, really focus on nutrition.
Mhm.
Our my wife is an incredible cook, and thank God for that. My mom always said you have to marry a good cook, and
Love it.
that wasn't what I was using to make my decision. But she's an amazing cook, and we actually met in the bodybuilding world, so
No
we
way.
look
Is
at
she also
nutrition
in the
together.
bodybuilding? Like, is that kind of her realm or
Used to be, used to
okay.
be, used to
Okay.
be. She studied psychology in her undergrad,
Mhm.
and she's an incredible, incredible coach. She
Mhm.
helps people work through a lot of trauma and healing. And so she's helped me with a lot of that stuff. And so it's really what do we put into our body? What do we absorb every day? What's the content that we listen to? The food, all the other movement and wellness things that you can think about. We have a sauna, we do the cold plunge, we do all those things. Um, and then we take our supplements. So it's like,
Yeah.
all of those things, not everybody's going to do all of those things, and you really don't have to. I think that that's where some people get stuck is thinking that they have to do all of those things. And it actually sometimes is distracting from other things that we need to be doing.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's just like for me, I used to have like a 10-step morning routine, but it's really cold plunge and walk, and that's it.
Yeah.
And so, it's like I've just learned over the years my non negotiables. And I think a lot of people that are starting their wellness journey, they see the Andrew Hubermans of the world and they see these other platforms that are great platforms and teach a lot of incredible stuff. Sometimes it just seems too complicated because you try to do everything. And so for each of us, we just have to figure out what are the highest leverage activities that really help us regulate our mood, regulate our nervous system, and then, be able to do the things like just building a small gym in our basement makes us really efficient. We don't drive out. Our daughter comes down in the basement with us. She watches us work out. She watches us do all these things. So we really have just like optimized every area of our life to be able to focus on those things because let's be real, like we all only have a certain amount of time. And I'm also not willing to sacrifice my health just for business. I'm not willing to sacrifice my relationship for business. And so for me, it's really like finances, fitness, and family. And those are like my three pillars. And obviously business comes into that. But that all to me is health and wellness, all of those together.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I love that. So I know we're coming to an end here soon. I could ask you a million more questions. I'm
Yeah.
sure we could keep going. But because with you being in, you talked about like your marriage and talked about having a child, like how has that shifted your perspective on life and your business? Because you did say you're like, okay, I'm not going to sacrifice my relationship. I'm not going to sacrifice like, my health for my business. So I'm just curious, like, how is that being married and having a child now? How has that shaped your perspective on how you do your life and your business?
Yeah. So I have over the years I've made a lot of friends, entrepreneurial friends, some that have been massively successful. And one of the conversations that we've had is that many people get to this point in life where they get the finances that they were looking for, but then they recognize that they lost community, they lost relationships, they lost family, they lost those opportunities. And so it's just being honest with myself, like what is it that really matters to me and what do I expect it's going to take? And when it comes to kids, so I have a daughter, she's 3.5, and I have a son that will be born uh, between tomorrow and 4 weeks from now.
What? Okay.
He's coming very
Shoot.
soon,
Oh
any
my
day now.
gosh.
And for me, the thing that I've recognized is that specifically with a daughter, she watches everything my wife does. She mimics me sometimes. She'll say things that I say, but she watches everything that my wife does and everything that I do. And
Mm,
Ed Milet said this at one point. He goes, at some point, your kids get old enough to hear you say you can be anything that you want to be with your life, but they ask the question, but mom or dad, why aren't you? So they get to this place where they can put together all the things that they told you,
mm,
that you told them, and then try to align them with what they've seen.
mm,
And what I've recognized, and I won't put this on my kids because it's not their responsibility, but I've I filter everything I do through the lens of what do I want my daughter and my son to see and
mm,
experience me do versus what I say because it's all on living your mission.
mm,
You Ed Milet also says things are caught, not taught. Like you catch the environment that you're in. And so my wife and I are just so intentional with that that could our business be growing faster? Probably. Could our relationship be growing faster? Probably. Could we be just cranking out babies faster? Probably. But like we're doing all those three
yeah.
and coming back to like focus, it's a narrow focus on those three things, but just making sure that we're pouring into each of those buckets so that we believe that our ultimate vision of the family that we want, the love that we want, the financial security that we want, that all of those things can be true and that our kids are just watching us and there's nothing we can do to change that.
Yeah.
And when you do enough therapy, you recognize how much your childhood shapes you.
For sure.
And that's just something that, sometimes it's a curse because you're hard on yourself. Like, oh, I shouldn't have spoken that tone or I shouldn't have done that. But for me, it's just this filter of responsibility and what I want my kids to see.
That's so good. If you could tell your younger self anything, what would that be?
Hmm. Be kind to yourself.
Mm, that's so
Be
good.
kind to yourself. Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah. I was a lot of my life, I've almost hated myself into action. Like I've been able to create things because of hatred towards myself. And something that happened in therapy after I had done a lot of it, my therapist just asked me, he said, Joseph, what would it look like to just forgive yourself? What if you completely forgive yourself?
Mm.
And my initial reaction was I'd lose my edge. I'd
Hmm.
lose that like inner drive, like you're not enough, you can't do enough, like you literally can. I'm like, that thing, that voice has actually produced a lot for me in my life. And is that how I always want to speak to myself and behave towards myself? And the answer is absolutely no. So absolutely be kind to yourself.
I love that. And then if you could tell somebody to pursue or live their dream or whatever their calling is, what would you tell them?
Yeah. I would loop back to our conversation and saying that it's way more simple than
Mm-hmm.
you and we and all of us make it out to be. And I would highly recommend just spend more time in listening to those little pings, asking for the signs, and then not ignoring them when they present themselves because they do present themselves. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the phone rings, we don't answer it, and we have regrets, and it's just true. And so it's so important to just listen to what you want, and it's different than what you need. Like
Yeah.
wants and needs are different. What do you want? Like, what do you
Yeah.
really want? That's the thing that we do in a lot of our mentorship and coaching that my wife mainly runs, but it's just like, what do you want? And own that because
Mm-hmm.
you have to own that. And in that, there's so much purpose, there's
Mm-hmm.
so much calling, and there's no calling too small, and there's no calling too big. And you never know the ripple effect you have just by doing something as small as Ben did. And for that, I'm forever grateful.
It's so good. Amazing. Well, I know I could chat with you forever and I feel
Absolutely.
like I want to meet you and your wife one day. Um,
Yeah.
and so how can people continue to follow you or be in touch with you?
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I really appreciate this whole conversation and likewise. And you ever want to do another podcast? We'll do it.
Yeah.
Um, so you could follow me on Instagram, Joseph Sheehey, Sheehey, or Cured Nutrition on Instagram. And from those two places, you can find everything.
Okay. Amazing. Well, everybody go follow him. This was an incredible conversation. I can't wait for the next one. But thank you so much, Joseph. It was
Yeah,
incredible.
you're very welcome. Thank you for having me.